If you guys are just joining right now, I'm reading from the book, The Atlantean Conspiracy. It is the same book as before, yes. Okay, North Korea is openly anti-Zionist and hostile toward Israel. They have no known Jews within their borders and even forbid Jewish tourists. Since the end of the Korean War, North Korea has only sent its forces abroad to fight one time, and that was against Israel. This is undoubtedly why the Zio-controlled mainstream media is constantly portraying everything about the North Korean people and government in a negative light. They say the winners write history, and it is absolutely true. The most egregious example in modern times has to be the mainstream misunderstanding of Adolf Hitler in pre-World War II Germany. I hope, guys, just understand, I'm reading from a book right now, so if this turns into very pro-Hitler, just understand, I don't believe that, I'm just reading from a book, and if it gets too crazy, I will stop. Adolf Hitler was actually a vegetarian, animal lover, an author and artist, a political activist, economic reformer, and nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. He enacted the world's first anti-animal cruelty, anti-pollution, and anti-smoking laws. Unlike the demonic portrait that history has painted of him, Hitler was beloved by his people and wanted nothing but peace. Okay, guys, I don't know about that. Okay, we're going to keep reading, though. After World War I in 1919, the Internationalist League of Nations, Treaty of Versailles, enforced draconian reparation taxes on Germany, so ridiculous that U.S. President Woodrow Wilson said, "If I was a German, I should think I would never sign it." Okay, that's true. That is true. British Prime Minister David Lloyd George says, "We have written a document that guarantees war in 20 years. When you place conditions on a people, Germany, that it cannot possibly keep, you force it either breach the agreement or to war." The next year in 1920, Jewish international bankers, many of them the same involved in creating the League of Nations and the Federal Reserve, began giving big interest-bearing loans to Germany. That's true. By 1923, Germany was already going bankrupt to the Jewish financiers and couldn't continue paying the 270 billion Reichsmark war reparations. I do want to say one thing. When you look at World War I, Germany was terribly demonized. That war, if you look at the starts of it, came from like the Baltics. There was really no purpose for anyone else to get into that war. There really wasn't. But it was a great way to control the people, slur up some hatred against people, kill a lot of people. And if you listen to earlier in this book on page, let me see, I'm at 88. It's in page 44. This book talks about what the goal of the First World War was. And I'm going to read this. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. Okay, so that was, and let me tell you where that was taken from. That was a quote from Albert Pike in a letter to Giuseppe Mazzini, an excerpt from William Carr's Pawns in the Game. Okay, so that was led by the Masons. That was the thought process there. So yes, this was a very corrupt war, and Germany did get the brunt of the blame for it, although that was not reasonable. This is World War I we're talking about. Okay, so that's what I want to say about that. Okay. By 1923, Germany was already going bankrupt to the Jewish financiers and couldn't continue paying the 270 billion Reichsmark war reparations. Unable to even buy back their own coal from the Allies, factories began closing and thousands of Germans became unemployed. True. In 1924, as revenge for Germany stopping payment to the Jewish international banksters, they devalued the papier mark so sharply that within months, millions of German families couldn't afford food or rent. It took a wheelbarrow full of papier marks to buy a loaf of bread. Thousands of Germans died of starvation. Agent Cowie says, want Vietnam War seemed to cause divide and control us. Oh, absolutely. That was such a gross war. Such a gross war. There was no reason for the U.S. to ever get involved in that war. And what's crazy is that so many civilians were against that war, and it didn't change anything, because people don't have any power. Stalin and the Jewish Bolsheviks were building concentration camps during this time, using Poland and other neighboring countries as a satellite to attack and take over German soil. This was the pretext for Hitler's rise to power. From 1933 to 1940, Hitler tried repeatedly to make peace with the Jews and Allied forces, even calling for complete disarmament on everyone's part. I don't know about that. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 1939, the very year he was attacked on his own soil, after repeatedly pleading for peaceful solutions. I don't know about that either. In 1936, 99% of German registered voters went out to vote, and 98% voted for Hitler. Here's the part with this. Here's the problem I have with this part. They're not citing their sources for this part, so I can't confirm this at all. The Jewish media has ever since painted an evil picture of Hitler, and the Jew world order has even enacted laws in 18 countries prohibiting free speech on the issues of Judaism and the Holocaust. Now, most of the Western world, now that's true, that is true. Now, most of the Western world has been systematically propagandized and inculcated into a sheepish silence regarding what has become one of the greatest taboos and the elephant in the conspiracy room, the Jewish question. People labeling anti-Semite at the first time of anything even remotely critical. It has become nearly impossible for us Goyim to organize any formal resistance. Simply questioning the official version of the Holocaust will land you in jail in 18 European countries. That is true.